Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this Primary Markets webinar. Today we have Brian and Peter from HydraLight who are going to give us a brief presentation on the product and then take us through the offer, and we'll take some questions and answers. So it's a very simple format. Without further ado, I'm going to transfer you across to Brian, who's going to lead us through this first part of the presentation. Brian, are you there?
Yes, I am, and thank you for the
Thanks, Brian.
Opportunity to present this. Excellent. Okay. Yeah, as I said, thanks for the opportunity to present this. HydraLight's been in development for over 4.5, 5 years. We've finally got to the point where the cell technology is now completely developed. The cell technology, and I'll be as quick as I can, originally was a reservoir. If you can imagine, we had a reservoir that we filled with salt water. It worked perfectly. The issue with it was as the cell was used, the residue would build up, and if people didn't clean it out and maintain it, it would slowly cause a glug, if you like, and a jelly. And consumers being the way they are, and we understand fairly lazy, if they were camping and using say a lantern for a couple of days and putting it away in a cupboard, when they come back to it in 3 months' time, there would just be a hard glug in there. It can be cleaned out and used, but we understood that it just wouldn't cut it. We were going to go to market with that, and just about when we were, our CTO rang me and said, Brian, we've cracked it. Which is the dip cell. Now the dip cell technology is what we'll quickly go through here. The beauty of it is that it's simple, it's self-maintaining, it uses the same technology, which is an air cell, and the air cell itself is basically a fuel cell in its purest form, so it uses oxygen as its fuel. Now, if the cell is sealed, it simply will not work. So it actually needs oxygen to run. The beauty of it is that it's a ion exchange process. It has huge power density, as we're quoting on this screen. Provides over a single cell will provide over 250 hours. In fact, we're getting far greater than that in our tests. The shelf life from new, we're saying 25 years, but we actually expect it to be a lot more. There is really no degradation, no ability for things to degrade. So sealed from new, it literally has no shelf life. It's clean. It has no toxic emissions or chemicals going into waste. We had a Facebook blogger in the US. Sadly, he caught hold of this a bit earlier than what I wanted, and he posted, a site saying, please, look at HydraLight and save millions of batteries going into landfill, and we got 1.5 million hits in one night. So the interest is massive in the technology and the opportunities. One single cell will replace, over 30 premium alkaline batteries. If we want to talk about actual power density, if there's any electrical engineers on board, it actually has 50,000, a single cell has about 50,000 milliamp hours of power density. If I could get it out quickly, we'd all be billionaires now. The sad thing is that it's a low power output. We've spent a huge amount of time, effort and money getting the electronics to the point where we've got super efficient electronics that actually stabilize and maintain exactly the same power output, and we're able to do lots of things like trickle charge internal batteries and so on. So the cell technology, there's a number of different products that all work with the similar features. When I say features, we've got a large cell, which is being represented here for a bigger lantern, and we've also got a small cell which is used for flashlights and smaller lanterns. It's as simple as that. It's a 1, 2, 3 activation. You grab the cell, you take it out of the product, you dip it in water for about 10 to 15 seconds, and you then place it in the product. You obviously shake it off, give it a bit of a wipe. It doesn't need to be. It can be totally wet inside the product, doesn't matter. put it inside the product, and then that'll give you up to 100 hours from one dip in water. And when I say water, in the slide it's saying salt water. What we've actually done is we've infused the proprietary membrane, and we've infused that with salt, and that allows us for the first about 3 dips to dip it into any water. So it can be fresh water, water, brine, doesn't matter. It can be salt water as well, and you dip it, and that'll then give you up to 100 hours of power from each dip. After the 3rd dip, it hasn't reduced the life cycle of the cell. It just means we then have to go to a saltwater dip, and that salt water can be salt water that you mix up yourself with at home with a bit of salt and water, or the ocean. And of course, leading from the ocean, you start to think about the marine opportunities with the cell. So it's a very simple process, and it can be left in the lantern once you've finished using it. That can be just put away in a cupboard. It'll naturally dry till the next time you're able to use it. With my hand on my heart, the only thing that I can't say is what its life cycle is after it's started to be used. So if you use it for 5 hours this Christmas, put it away in the cupboard. What we don't know is, can you pull it out next Christmas and use it for 5 hours? Theoretically, dry is dry, and it should just last as long as if it's sealed from new. Currently, we can say that it happily works for 6 months because that's the timing we've had with the dip cells. From new, as I said earlier, 25 plus years shelf life, not a problem at all. So for the preppers and those sort of markets of people, the doomsday people and people who've got bunkers and all those sort of things ready for that day, they're all over this as well. So the cells themselves generate own power, so it's basically a generator, if you like. It's saying 0 fossil fuels, there's no emissions, 24 uptime, so we've got the ability to do phone charging. The phone charging, we actually use a hybrid solution because, as I said before, it's very low power out of the cells. We have the ability, we have the electronics complete now, where we can trickle charge a lithium-ion battery. So what we actually do is trickle charge a 18650 lithium-ion battery in the bigger lanterns, and that allows us to then use a standard 5-volt USB to charge iPhones and whatever it may be. The bigger lantern, the one on the bottom right of the slide there, that actually has 2 lithium-ion batteries internal, and that has 4,000 milliamp hours of power. It takes us about 12 hours to trickle charge those batteries, but that then allows you to charge, say, 3 iPhones, one after the other, and then you would have to wait 12 hours. But obviously, most people would just top up, half a phone or whatever they need to do to charge their phone. So it's a very useful tool, and it's what we sort of use as a base camp. It's a very bright lantern. It lights up a whole area, and it also has an accessory light option, which allows us to have a separate light in a separate room. If you see the second small lantern from the left, that has a power head on it, and that allows 3 accessory lights to run off a single little cell. Literally, you can run 3 rooms off a little cell. So as you can imagine, in the NGO world and the third world, there's huge interest in this being able to not replace solar. We don't want to become a competitor to solar. We've actually been swamped by a number of solar companies, including some of the biggest, Goal Zero and these sort of companies, chasing us to actually either do a hybrid solution with them and or distribute the products directly. So, and that's from solar companies at places like ADEX and those sort of things. They've literally, I think I had 5 solar companies come to me at ADEX looking to distribute. So all the lanterns, as I said, have the accessory light option. So the big lantern to the right, it has the ability to see the USB port on the left covered, and then there's a little flip that has the 2.5mm jack for the accessory light, and then the 2 light switches, left-hand light switches for water, and you've got 2 modes of water power. The beauty of it is if we're just using water power to light an area, for example, the big lantern on the right, that will last about 600 hours of usage hours, that is. So it's just crazy. The figures that we're quoting and the return on investment, just if we're replacing batteries, is a no-brainer, let alone all of the green side of it, plus the cool side of it, being able to use salt water. So the interest we've raised is is phenomenal. I've been in sales for a long time, and it's the first time I've had people actually chasing us. And to give you an example, at the ADEX conference, we literally had people lining up, waiting to try and talk to us and find out about it. The products are complete. Everything's been tooled. It's now a situation where we've got huge interest. We've had television exposure. I'm being requested to go on Good Morning America and these sort of platforms. We have an infomercial. If you've looked at the term sheet, which is about to go to air across the US, the actual commercial itself was delivered to the focus group for feedback, and there were a couple of changes that happened. Those changes occurred. This is a 3,000 people focus group in the US, and it's come back now as the top 3 of all time, is what their expectations are. So the ability for the product to be, I guess, represented in a number of different markets, everything from third world, first world, whatever it might be. The cell there is showing you the cutout with the internal batteries, long life LEDs, of course, and we tried to keep it as simple as we possibly can. This is the supercell. It's got obviously bright LEDs that lights up a whole area, USB and DC charging, as I said. It's modular, so it can actually flip it around and add different cells. It has 2 internal salt water or fresh water, as we're saying, from the output, and recyclable materials. If you can go to the next one, thanks. The accessory light, I've already talked about that, so you can keep on going if you want. Basically, it's just an accessory light that goes. This one, stay on this please, Nick. These are 2 mini lights. This is slightly different technology in that it's already infused and it has a slightly different anode and cathode arrangement. Still dipping water. The beauty of this is that these are little emergency lights, and the size of the one on the left is almost like one of the little lighters you used to have that flipped up. It comes in a vacuum sealed pack. When it's required to be used, you simply rip open the pack, the vacuum seal. There's a little tab on the bottom of the light. You pull that open, dip it in any water halfway up, and that'll then give you 100 hours of light. We've got people trying to buy. I had people on the stand trying to buy 1,000, literally with their credit card. I couldn't take it, and we've already got orders for tens of thousands of those immediately, and it's everything from storage for emergency use, because it once again sealed in its packet. It has no shelf life, and it's just got its massive interest in that. So so the little mini light is going to be huge. Talk about the term sheet. It's obviously out there at the moment. So much more has happened even from the front of that term sheet since I've been away in the last 7 weeks. I've attended 3 shows, and that was everything from the first hour I was at the outdoor show in Salt Lake City. I had the directors of one of the biggest marine groups in the US. I've already flown to California and met with them after the show by invite, and they want to produce their own product branded by them. I'll talk all day.
Yeah, no, Brian, so just to talk about, I suppose, look, the offer's there, and people have had a view of the term sheet and the presentation. If they haven't, they can please do an expression of interest on the platform after this webinar. Just, I suppose, there's been a couple of questions coming in, and you talk about this huge amount of demand that's coming through, and you're looking here at raising $1 million. You look at use of funds and what the million's for, and now suddenly you're talking about huge potential demand. How do those things align? I suppose we'd like to get a bit more. Someone would like to get a bit more context around the use of funds and what it means.
Yeah, definitely. Our biggest protection going forward is our name and HydraLight and getting the product out there. We need to now, sing this from the treetops. Everything's in place to deliver, hundreds of thousands of units a month to the market. we need to now physically market this globally, and a majority of the funds will be allocated to marketing. The actual product themselves, as I said, are all finished tooling. The cells are completed, the new cells are completed, tooling. Everything's ready for shipment. We've actually got first orders. We've got containers starting as first orders. So the way we've structured all of our funding with the distributors, which is the model that we've gone with, which is a distribution model globally, is that they paid a deposit up front and then full payment on bill of lading before shipment out of FOB out of China. So we're not actually funding, or we don't need to fund the actual orders or the build process from the units. The only time that we'll actually look at doing that is when we potentially go direct to some of the big players like the Walmarts and those sort of things. If we eventually go direct to those, then we'll need a big pocketed backer that will support us to actually give terms to those companies. Yep. We may be able to then structure it so that the factories will give us terms, but at the moment where our model is going through distributors, and the distributors are paying us deposits up front. So I think sorry, go on.
No, that's fine, Brian. Just another question regarding IP. So obviously protection here of IP, and obviously a pretty innovative product. Could there be a bit more explanation around, you talk here about it's either been secured or applications are lodged. Could we get a bit more information on that, please?
Yes, certainly. We've got applications already lodged on the cell technology. We're about to lodge the electronics patent, which sounds strange. We can actually patent the electronics that we've designed, but that's about to be lodged also. The actual provisional patent, to be honest, I almost don't want the patent to be awarded 12 or 18 months down the track, because then, as anybody knows, patents are then published, and the territories and countries that we're dealing with, we'll grab it with both hands at some stage. So that's why we need to push the name out there. And the technology is sound. It'll be very difficult for people to copy to the point where it actually delivers the results. Some people will be able to get things, half copied and these sort of things, but as far as the IP goes, it is fully patented provisionally patented at the moment, and we've lodged a separate patent and design patents in the US for the infomercials product. That's already been done and lodged. So infomercials are ready to go, and they're being pushed by some other home shopping channels in the US saying that they want to get it as well. So it's pretty exciting.
Thanks for that. Okay.
Status.
Yep. Sorry, just conscious of time, and hopefully there's a few bit more information that comes up. We've got just opening again to any potential questions from the floor. I do have one more question that's come through the chat. You had a question here about, does the technology have other applications than just lighting, is the question from the floor.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've already had marine applications being looked at, military applications, security applications, where everything from looking at potentially powering headsets on soldiers through to even marine, where you've got your category checks for standby power for lighting. It's a very simple situation where we can build a power box that has a lanyard on it that's already connected and wired into the running lights of, say, a bigger yacht or motor cruiser. Power gets lost, you can simply throw the power box overboard, pull it back in, and you've got power for hundreds of hours for all of your lighting and running lighting. We're already working with the Lifeboat Society in the UK, looking at implementing a power pack that sits in the lifeboats permanently. There's so many applications that we've just completed the first build of a bamboo flashlight and cell. and yes, I said bamboo, which is just going to be massive in the developing nations, because it basically is fully recyclable and refurbishable. So we can actually refurbish the internals. The residue for anybody out there is in the cell is actually magnesium hydroxide, which is milk of magnesia. I used to drink it as a kid for upset stomachs. So there's no toxic waste and those sort of things in there.
Okay. The range of applications is anything you put a dry cell battery in. There's prototype radio, which is a transistor type radio, which is using the technology.
Bluetooth speakers, anything you can think of, really.
Okay. Fantastic. Any other questions on the floor? I'm conscious of time. We'll look to close it up now. Thank you very much for your time today. If there are any other questions, please, by all means, come through to us at Primary Markets. We can then look to introduce you to the team there and hopefully enlighten you a bit further on the product and or the offer. I'd like to sort of wrap up proceedings. Brian, Peter, thanks very much for your time. Yes, you're right. We could actually talk for hours on this, but we like to keep these as short as we can. On that note, thank you very much for coming in today and joining us, and look forward to talking to you soon. Cheers.